Okie doke. Okay, so I suppose the first question is who are you?
Yeah, so my name is Oisín O'Donoghue. I am the co-founder of Jack's Planet Theatre, as well as the writer and director of Sentimental, a new gig musical. And I'm really happy to be here.
Okay, so what is Sentimental? What is it about?
Yeah, totally. So Sentimental is a new gig musical, which is kind of somewhere between a musical and a piece of gig theatre, about two ex-lovers, John and Jez, who both receive a mysterious invitation on the evening of the collapse of the world to come back to the club where they first met. So while they're there, they have to sort out their past, their present, how they're going to move forward. And yeah, I suppose the show is about art, its positives, how we can use it to express the small ecstasies of living, but also how we can often use it to insulate ourselves from the world around us, and also weaponize it in many cases. So yeah, the power of art in a collapsing world, which felt relevant.
Yeah, obviously you touched on it a little bit. It's relevant today in everything that's going on. But how did the idea come about? Where did it come from?
Yeah, so I always it sounds gas whenever I say it, but I was reading the book of Revelations because I think looking for some inspiration in collapse times. And I was reading about how the book of Revelations was written, where basically, so the story goes, it was a minister called John took this guy called Procrus to a tiny Greek cave, and ranted at him for 5 days and everything he said. And that is what the book of Revelations is. So I was really interested in this idea because a lot of the book of Revelations is this like screed against Jezebel, against the character of Jezebel. And it feels oddly personal. It feels like John has a real personal issue with Jezebel, and he's using this book to like have a go at her. I thought that idea was really interesting, of like painting this idea of the apocalypse through a specific person and kind of weaponizing your art to do that. So that's how it was initially inspired by. And then I got to writing with my co-writer, Rory Nicol, who is excellent star and the musical talent of the operation. And we got to going over the course of lockdown. And yeah, it just kind of kept going one-on-one. We'd send songs back and forth to each other. We'd send monologues, different pieces, and a script came together and a show developed from there.
You touched on a little bit there, but building the show over lockdown, what can't be easy, couldn't have been an easy thing to do.
No.
What was that process of creating a musical in totally different spaces like?
A nightmare. No, we made it work in the end. We basically work independently and then come together for like online meetings where we'd run different demos and different kind of monologues and things. And it was kind of cool because the rehearsal process was all digital. All the rehearsal process happened with cast over the course thing, which is actually kind of cool because as a director, I'm somebody who very much likes giving power to actors, because I think my perspective as a person is just super limited, and I won't understand their experiences, and I wouldn't have them there as performers if I didn't think they could bring something independent and unique and brilliant to it. So having Rory, Sarah, and Morgan all be these very creative, strongly minded people, I kind of gave a lot of the power over to them. And lockdown in a weird way facilitated that, where it gave them, a week at a time to kind of go away, conceptualize the character, conceptualize how things should sound, and then come back and we could like talk it over in these kind of like very organic group settings. And it was nice in that way, but a logistic nightmare in terms of actually getting things recording a show on the
road. Yeah, so it's a fully fledged show. It's not just an album. You've got a full show that you've built over lockdown. So what's kind of next for the show? Where do you envisage it's heading? Where's it going? What's next?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, the show it's basically as it's currently envisioned, is very much an Edinburgh Fringe design show. It's an hour and 20, hour 30, kind of full performance piece. So that's why in the album we have these three kind of monologue sections, was to kind of give a taste of the writing of the show, and also give a taste of how format wise the show will sound, and they're just for the album to give a taste. They're not actually in the final piece, because I thought I wanted to give the album its own kind of complete set. I didn't want it to be like a supplement. I personally dislike that when I'm listening to like an album of a musical, and I'm like, so I feel like I need a script here that I'm like reading alongside it to know what's like happening. So I like the idea of kind of giving it its own kind of completeness, have it be its own individual work that is almost different from the final piece. So yeah, in the future we'll be hoping to bring the show to the Irish theatre circuit before taking it to Edinburgh, which is really exciting. And I really like the whole Edinburgh, like I like the Fringe ethos. It's where I've got a lot of my theatre experience over the last few years. I like stuff that's rough and ready. I like stuff that feels organic, and that's the feeling we hope to give to it. And yeah, I'm really excited for its future.
We talked about the album. What was the response to the album being released? What was the response like?
Yeah, the response was really good. It was really interesting. We had like a anonymous thing open for people to send in like their thoughts as soon as it was released. And I think it's really fun when you make an anonymous thing, because suddenly, even though I know it's largely people in my life who have seen this thing, they'll just start having goes at random things, and you're like, okay, you're going, and they'll just start having like weird critiques, and it's fun. And actually we learned a huge amount about what worked and what didn't through that, which is really cool. But it's interesting, I suppose. I always think it's interesting when you're working in art on such a small scale that you tend to kind of understand how people have ended up seeing it. You know, this person will tell this person, will tell this person. And then it was almost a question I had for you. It was like the review came out, and I was like, so how did this person find it? You know?
Yeah, no, totally. Well, the way I'm always on the lookout for new shows and new musicals, and I'd seen. So I'd searched new musical into Spotify, and scrolled down past the ones I've already seen and already listened to, and the new musicals that have been out for 25 years or whatever, and eventually stumbled upon Sentimental. And I know I said in my review that it's completely different to the normal musical theatre sort of setup. So that gig musical gives it a unique twist. So why was that sort of gig element important for you to put into the show?
Yeah, totally. I love style of theatre making. In particular, it's inspired pretty heavily by Electrolyte, which was a show that was going around the UK for the last 2 or 3 years, which is this phenomenal kind of piece of like slam poetry, which is done in a kind of gig setting. I think that's fun. I think the performance-based as setting is really interesting. I think putting people on stages, putting characters on stages, kind of imbibes them with this new kind of double layer of meaning at all times, because I really like the dynamic of people talking to audiences and then people talking to themselves, and how different that ends up being. A lot of the stuff I write ends up taking place in either theatrical or creative settings. So yeah, it is different. We definitely wanted to give it that feel. When we were recording it, the album, our sound engineer, Sean Casey, largely does live gigs. That's largely what he does. Okay. And we wanted basically him to do the recording of it to emulate that as much as possible. So the only tricks in there are things that you can do live. Everything else is done as it would be, with all the characters playing their own instruments and everything like that being natural. So it's not perfect, and I like that. There's like a point in one of the tracks. It's like a Beatles recording studio kind of moment where you can hear somebody curse in the background because somebody had just dropped something, and I can hear it. I can hear it, and it's still there. I've been waiting so long for somebody to point out to me. I'm like, hey, did somebody say the F word like in the background of that one? And I'm waiting so long for somebody to point out, and it just like hasn't happened yet. But I like that. I think it gives it a really distinct feeling of live in this, because I think sometimes when you listen to a concept album, you can hear, or even a cast recording, you can hear the recording studio, you know what I mean? Like you can hear the fact that this person is behind a pane of glass, and they have been shouting this thing for 2 hours and they're exhausted. And I kind of like the feeling of like liveness that comes from it, because there's a lot of different things that happen every time.
And also
we would just run songs like 4 or 5 times.
It's more. I think it's more accessible as well. With musical theatre, it's got that rep of being so perfect, so over the top, so cheesy, so you caricatures that you oftentimes don't relate to these characters or don't understand what they're going through. And sort of that combination of that sort of the actors and performers being able to give their own sort of twist into it, and then the accessibility of it being a gig musical and not being a bit rough around the edges, just makes it more accessible to listeners. And I think that's what's really great about the show. And on top of that,
I think it was really heavily inspired by Cabaret as well, because that's something I love about Cabaret, is that when you watch Cabaret, also being my favorite musical, but I love that when you watch different performers of Cabaret do Cabaret, the show is completely different. Like more so than most. Nobody's MC is the same. Alan Cumming and Joel Grey's MCs are completely different characters. Those are different people. And I love that. I love how personal that feels. And I like that when you listen to different recordings of Cabaret, you get that vibe. You feel like you're in a sleazy German club, but who is in that club feels so unique and different. And it was definitely really inspired by that in tone.
And I suppose from kind of a business mindset, it means that the same person can see the show multiple times and still enjoy it to the same extent, take something else from it. And also it's great for, I think the musical is great for introducing sort of a new market to musical theatre. It's not cheesy, it's not over the top. It's, it's something that these live music people, people who enjoy gigs will understand, and that could be a gateway into other shows. So where can people stay with the show and where it's going next? Where can people find you online?
Yeah, totally. So you can find us on Instagram at Jack's Banded Theatre. We also have a website, jacksbandedtheatre.com, which is poorly put together because it's put together by me, and I'm a theatre maker, not a website designer, but it has a flair. And yeah, those are the two best places to find us. We have some exciting projects coming up in the meantime, which are going to be really, really cool, I think. We have a piece of shadow puppetry coming up about a stand-up comedian, which is going to be really fun. Really, really excited for it. And we also have this interactive kind of theatre piece coming up as well, about online dating, but you have control. And yeah, it's really exciting. I think it's an exciting time to be a theatre maker, in that the one good thing about lockdown in terms of creativity, I think for me, was this blending of kind of pre-recorded and live material. I think is really, really interesting artistically. You see it with projects like, Bo Burnham's Inside and stuff like that, where it's people blending kind of traditional forms to make something different, new. And I also think it makes the theatrical more accessible to people, because like as somebody who, when I was younger, didn't get to see a lot of plays, because it was kind of this inaccessible space that I was terrified of. I think it's great to be able to bring people to and make it a thing that anyone can jump into.
So what advice have you got for young theatre creatives right now, trying to create their own works?
I think the key is not really learning how to succeed, because I don't think I've learned how to do that yet. I think it's more learning how to fail well and fail often, I think is the most important thing. I remember the first play I put on in college was a play called Wasn't a Bits, and it was one of the most horrific pieces of theatre I've ever seen and made. It was horrendous, and like everything that could go wrong went wrong. It taught me like everything I know now, everything I know about managing an ensemble, managing a vibe, how to make good work, but also work that is good for you. Like I learned everything I need to know, and every time I make something, even if I don't like it, I learn how to make something that I will like more. I think the key for anyone who's young getting into theater is literally to create, and you can create anywhere. Like the Sentimental was, you know, made in like my shed at the back. Like it's like you can create anywhere, and the tools are becoming more and more accessible every day, thankfully. So make it all the time, and make bad stuff frequently.
I suppose for my last question is, how would you describe the show in one word?
How do I describe what, sir?
How would you describe Sentimental in one word?
Oh God, you have a good question. That's difficult. Vibrant, or at least I hope it is. I think it's vibrant. It wants to be very personal and lively, and to me, vibrancy is the idea of something that is unique. Yeah. And I wanted the recording of it to be a unique recording of the sounds. I want them to just be like the songs, and like these are the songs now, and this is the Bible, go away, and like, you know, you can learn off these. I like the idea of the recording of them themselves being a unique event. Yeah. So vibrant I think is the word I would use.
Fantastic. Okay, so that's everything. So thank you very much for taking the time out to sit down and chat with me. I'll be putting the links to the website and social media in the description, so that people can stay up to date with the show.
If I could shout out one thing, actually, I think a thing that wasn't appreciated with Sentimental from like the general audience when it came out was that the album cover was actually a painting, and it's a painting my mother created. Wow. So I actually have the painting here, which is the album cover, and I just want that known that Sylvia Webb is the progenitor of this, and God bless her soul.
That's amazing.
I just want that known.
But yes, thank you very much, and I shall speak to you soon.
No worries, Tal. Thanks so much.
Bye. See you soon.